but I think in this one, Katie Ledecky will be the one to try and match up with. Lani Pallister has to swim her own race. This is a very personal race for each of the individual athletes, what they can bring to themselves, the level of pain that they'll have to go through to be able to accomplish what they want. It's a mental game for each individual.
So from a World Championships perspective, Katie Ledecky is looking for a 5th gold medal in this event. She won it for the first time in 2013 as a 16-year-old, and she won it last year as a 25-year-old. She was totally dominant in the heats.
Take your marks.
The world record holder, Katie Ledecky, is in the water, and she started nicely. Lani Pallister right next to the champ in lane 3. Simona Quadrella, the Italian swimmer, in lane 5. And Li Bingji's made a clean start as well, but already Ledecky with about a quarter of a body length margin on Pallister and Li Bingji. Grimes at the top of the pool, swimming in lane 1.
I always find a Katie Ledecky race extraordinary because, especially over these distance events, the 800, the 1500, we know that she doesn't have, it's not like she's an incredible back-end swimmer or anything like that. She is always out first, and that's where she stays. It just the lead just increases. It's a consistency that she has in her swimming technique, her style, the way that she goes about racing. There's reliability that comes with Katie Ledecky, and you will see that this distance that she's ahead will be extended throughout the race. She's at a body length. She wasn't at a body length at 50 metres. You know, she was virtually equal with Lani Pallister. What will be interesting is what Lani Pallister does when we look at the lower part of the screen, what Quadrella from Italy does at the same time. Are you tempted just to swim off one athlete? Do you try and stay a little bit further ahead, just behind where Katie Ledecky is, to get a good time?
So you can see she's on her own world record pace, 15:20:48. She set that in 2018. Look at the margin already. Not even 200 metres down, and Ledecky with 2 body lengths on Lani Pallister. And Simona Quadrella there also.
The margin is significant at this early stage. The only thing with Ledecky, she's lifting her head a little bit when she's breathing, like lifting up to actually initiate the breath, which is a fatiguing factor over a long distance. But I'm not going to correct Katie Ledecky on what she's doing. She knows far more about this than what I do.
Good news is Lani Pallister looks good. Quite like what we saw with Lani in her stroke so much in the 400. 400 free on day 1. Lani was through to the final and actually swam a few seconds slower in the final of the 400 free, and her stroke just didn't look comfortable. Didn't look like she could find her rhythm. It's really difficult for a distance swimmer, and Thorpe, I'd love to chat to you about this. It's really difficult for a distance swimmer when the shortest event on your program is up front, and then you still have to hold some kind of endurance base throughout the week, knowing that you've got, in these women's case, 2 1500s and 2 800s yet to come. Unless you're Katie Ledecky, who it doesn't seem to matter how the program is organised, you swim well in all of them. But ideally, would I say that for a distance swimmer, your ideal scenario is that for these women, the 1500s first, the 800 second, and the 400 is at the end.
Yeah, ideally, I'd agree with you. That would make sense for everyone, but with the inclusion of both the 800 for men and the 1500 for women, it has complicated the schedule significantly. But that is a preference, and getting a taper right in itself is difficult enough. But to be able to land it for a specific event, so some people only swim one race, and you know, someone like Katie Ledecky or Emma McKeon, you have to be able to perform over multiple races. When you're doing the same kind of distances as Katie Ledecky, especially when she was also doing 200 metres, to be able to cover even those events in itself, they are like different sports. So you're right that you prefer it to be that way. You don't get to choose that. But Lani Pallister is still quite good coming into that 400 metres in 3rd place, and she's coming off the wall well. So, all of those turns and things will make a difference for Lani when it comes to the final result, because Quadrella has to catch up off those skills.
So Ledecky looking for her 15th individual gold medal at a World Championships, which would equal Michael Phelps' tally. That name comes up again.
Interesting to note that world record line is in play. That is, of course, Katie Ledecky's world record of 15:20.48, and she set that way back in 2018, and she's not within, she's within striking distance of that at the moment. So she's got 5.3 metre lead over Quadrella at this stage.
Yes, they're shocking numbers for us, but when we looked at that world record line, she was ahead of her own pace at the very beginning, but she's pretty much stuck, and she looks as though she's 1 metre behind what that pace would be.
So with 500 metres down, a kilometre left to swim, Katie Ledecky has it all out on her own terms at the moment. Lani Pallister doing well. She's in a separate race, really, with Simona Quadrella for the silver medal. Katie won in Budapest last year by a 14-second margin. In Budapest 2017, she won by 19 seconds. She owns the top 15 performances of all time and 21 out of the top 22. It is dominance on a scale we've never seen until this legend.
In some ways it sounds strange to say that Katie is focusing on the more distance events in her regime, given that she hasn't swum the 200 individual at these World Championships. There was a time when she was the 200, the 400, the 800 and the 1500 champion, all at the same World Championships. So she's dropped that 200, knowing that she probably doesn't quite have the same level of speed as the other swimmers swimming the 200 these days, and so focusing on the 4, 8 and 15.
And that was what we were talking about before, John, looking at that taper for an event and trying to swim across all of these distances. Katie Ledecky definitely is a distance swimmer at her, finest, but she has had the capacity to be able to come down from that event, be able to break world records in the 400 metres freestyle, and then in the 200 freestyle, she's been good enough to compete against the very best in the world.
So Ledecky from Quadrella, Pallister third, and Isabel Gosa, the swimmer from Germany, who's been pretty impressive throughout the first 3 days and swum a really good heat in the 1500. She's just closing that gap ever so slightly on Lani Pallister.
So this is probably the danger period for a lot of athletes, around the halfway mark of a 1500. We talked about during the heat process where a lot of athletes like to break it down into 3 500-metre blocks, whereas, as I said, this is the danger period where you can start to maybe feel too much or not feel where you wanted to feel at this part in the race, and it becomes a mental game to move through the motions, to know that you're past halfway ideally, but to also play that through your head and say, I've trained for this, I know what's happening, and to not drop off that pace at this stage.
It's normalising what you're experiencing, and knowing that this has happened before in training, knowing what this feeling is, and realising that there is, light at the end of this tunnel.
So it's Ledecky v the clock at the moment. This margin continues to grow, and Pallister was stroke for stroke with Quadrella for some time, but you can just see there on that wider shot that she's a couple of body lengths behind now, and Gosa, the German swimmer, out in lane 2, is just edging ever so closer to Lani Pallister. And Quadrella only sounds ridiculous, but she's only 10 metres off Katie Ledecky, who has won by outrageous margins and quite regularly.
Right, that's 1/150th of this race, so it's not that ridiculous.
absolutely right. Quadrilla has lifted. She's found another gear. And it's showing on the scoreboard at the moment. Lani's PB is 15:48.96. She swam that to win the bronze medal at the World Championships in Budapest last year.
And this is greatness. Katie Ledecky just cutting away through the water with such elegance. And her aerobic endurance is just out of this world. She's been doing this since she's 16. Now 26, and considering swimming all the way through to Los Angeles 2028. When you're winning by spaces like this, why wouldn't you keep going?
She's also an incredible athlete. When we talk about recently how many athletes to reach the late 20s that they are performing at well have had to have had a relatively large break at certain times in their career. We've seen Emma McKeon take a big break after Tokyo. Even Arnie had a big break after Tokyo. And that is to get them through the next Olympic cycle. Whereas Katie Ledecky doesn't seem to ever take those larger breaks. She's been fairly solid and made an appearance at every major international meet since she started.
Do you think it's to do with the expectations that we have as an Australian swimming-loving public that may contribute to it? Because I think it's slightly different in the US. You know, part of what the US swim team do, you know, they are going to university or going to college, as they say. You know, they're getting a degree. You know, part of it is being in that collegiate system, which is set up to actually encourage them outside of the sport as well.
But most other American athletes outside of Katie, you often don't see them at the World Championships after an Olympics. You often don't see them in the year, 2 years after an Olympics. They start their Olympic program and that cycle after a really solid break, both mentally and physically, after an Olympics.
And it's a 4-year strategy. It's take the time off after the Olympics. The goal is the Olympics, and it's why we see them perform. And we always see this upswing from a World Championships the year prior to an Olympic Games, and we see the Americans then lift for the Games. It is an entire strategy around that.
It's not uncommon to see the US swimmers completing their university work in between sessions. And in fact, it wasn't uncommon in Ian Thorpe's younger days to see him finishing his English homework.
Are you saying I didn't do it in my later days? Thanks, mate.
Between heats and winning gold medals, as he invariably did. So Ledecky, she's out by 17 metres. She's accelerated just to break the hearts of her competition a little more. She turns here with 6 laps to go. And Quadrella has done an excellent job. And look at Lani Pallister. There was a real challenge there from Isabel Gosa, but maybe Pallister has just seen the German competitor off for the moment. Bronze would be a fantastic achievement for Lani.
Absolutely.
So we've seen that world record line removed from the Katie Ledecky lane, and that's because she's just dropping off slightly off that pace, holding consistently throughout around that 31 seconds per lap. Just dropped out to 31.23 at the 1250 metre mark.
For the time, I think it'll be around 15:28, which is her world junior record time. And even that in itself that time is from 2014. Katie Ledecky is still a young swimmer with intentions to go through to Los Angeles in 2028.
So this American champion continues to draw further and further away from the field. I'm sure all the swimming public in the United States are watching this with the same awe and respect that we are here and right around the world. Ledecky turns. She'll have the bell in around about 25 metres. But this is as dominant as everyone would have expected. And every stroke she takes, she continues to extend this lead. An amazing performance by one of the greatest athletes world sport has ever witnessed.
There's a bell for Katie Ledecky.
For some, that must be the sweetest sound in the world.
She passes Quadrella at about the 20-metre mark.
And look, she's upping the straight rate. There's still something left in the tank, quite remarkably. Now, that's the championship record line, so potentially there is a record to fall here.
So now we need to keep an eye on Lani Pallister, because all of a sudden there is a few vying for that bronze medal. Quadrella is out in silver medal position comfortably. The rest of the field is coming closer to Lani Pallister. She needs to find something in this final leg.
So it's Bingji Lee that would be on the outside. It's possibly there, so we can't see them at the moment.
But this is superhuman. She is the greatest we've ever seen, and she wins gold for the 15th time at a World Championships. Katie Ledecky, how sweet it is. Now, Simona Quadrella from Italy is getting home, and Li Bingji has gone past Lani Pallister. So she's going to finish out of the medals, Lani. Li Bingji bronze. And then Kopichikova has got 4th position. Lani Pallister has touched the wall in 5th. But let's salute a legend. Katie Ledecky has done it again. She wins this for the 5th time.
Katie Ledecky, just extraordinary. We talked about her split times, and if you look at them there, she actually, that final 100, found another level. So 30.51 in the second last lap, 29.17 to bring it home. Final time of 15:26.27. When we talk about Lani, she's finished in 5th, but with that time of 15:49.17, she's not that far outside her personal best time.
It's just outside, and across 1,500 metres, you know, that's what you refine. They're the things that what you need to look at, and you have to put this into perspective as well. You know, this would be 0.1 of a second off your best time if you're swimming 100 metres freestyle.
Well, we've run out of superlatives. She's won by 14 seconds again.
Yeah, it's a superlative conspiracy right here.
And she just keeps going and going and going.
What I love about it as well is for someone that has accumulated so many gold medals, so many world records, so many instances of magic throughout a career, to watch her celebrate at the end of that. She's clearly thrilled. It's not like, oh, yep, there's just another one to add to the collection. She was thrilled with that performance.
And that's the champion quality, isn't it?